Welcome back to Narrations. 5 years ago, Thanos snapped his fingers. Half of all life in the universe disappeared. The Avengers failed. Their friends vanished. Their families disappeared. And the heroes who remained were left wondering how they could possibly fix what had happened. But hope isn't completely gone. Because one survivor has found a way back. And the Avengers are about to attempt the most impossible mission of their lives. They are going back in time. The story begins with Clint Barton. Before the snap, Clint had retired from superhero life. He was spending time with his wife and children on their farm. Then, in an instant, they were gone. Clint watches helplessly as his family disappears. He screams for them. But there is nothing he can do. The man once known as Hawkeye is consumed by grief. He leaves his family home behind and begins hunting criminals around the world. He becomes something darker. A vigilante who believes that the people who deserve to live are the people who have earned it. Meanwhile, Tony Stark and Nebula are stranded in space. Their ship is damaged. Their food is almost gone. Their oxygen is running out. Tony records a final message for Pepper. He apologizes for not being able to return home. He tells her that he loves her. He expects to die. Then, a bright light appears outside the ship. Captain Marvel. Carol Danvers rescues them. Tony is brought back to Earth. The Avengers reunite at their headquarters. But Tony is physically exhausted. Steve Rogers is still trying to hold the team together. Natasha has spent 5 years searching for a solution. Thor has become a broken man. Bruce Banner has changed in a completely different way. He has finally found a balance between himself and the Hulk. And Clint is barely recognizable. The heroes have tried everything. Nothing worked. Then Carol explains that she has been searching across the galaxy. Thanos is hiding somewhere. The Avengers track Thanos to a distant planet. They find him living quietly. The Infinity Stones are gone. He has destroyed them. Thor immediately attacks. He uses Stormbreaker. And this time, he aims for the head. Thor kills Thanos. But the victory means nothing. The stones are gone. They cannot undo the snap. 5 years pass. The world is still suffering. Cities have emptied. Families have been separated. People struggle to rebuild their lives. The Avengers have largely gone their separate ways. Natasha remains at the headquarters. Steve helps people cope with the loss. Thor rules the surviving Asgardians in New Asgard. Bruce has become a public hero. Clint is still hunting criminals. Tony has moved on. He lives in a peaceful home with Pepper and their daughter, Morgan. For the first time, Tony has the family he always wanted. He doesn't want to risk losing it. Then something impossible happens. Scott Lang returns. He emerges from the quantum realm. But from his perspective, only a few hours have passed. He has no idea that 5 years have gone by. Scott finds the world completely changed. He searches for his daughter. Cassie is now a teenager. Scott is overwhelmed. His family survived. But billions of others did not. Scott travels to the Avengers compound. He tells Natasha and Steve about the quantum realm. Time behaves differently there. He believes the Avengers could use it to travel through time. If they can return to the past, they might be able to retrieve the Infinity Stones before Thanos ever gets them. The idea sounds impossible. But Scott believes it could work. The Avengers approach Tony Stark. They explain the plan. Tony immediately refuses. He has a family now. He doesn't want to risk everything. But later, Tony begins thinking about it. He studies the problem. He looks at a photograph of Peter Parker, the young hero he failed to save. Tony eventually finds a way to manipulate time through the quantum realm. The Avengers have a chance. Tony returns to the compound. He tells Steve that he has solved the problem. But there is one condition. They must be extremely careful. They can't simply change history. Instead, they need to borrow the Infinity Stones from specific moments in time. then return them to the exact moments they were taken. That way, they can prevent dangerous changes to the timeline. The plan becomes known as the Time Heist. The Avengers divide into teams. They need all 6 Infinity Stones: the Space Stone, the Mind Stone, the Reality Stone, the Power Stone, the Time Stone, and the Soul Stone. Each stone exists in a different place and time. The mission is incredibly dangerous. But the Avengers are willing to try. Because the people who disappeared are still waiting somewhere. Steve, Tony, Scott, and Bruce travel back to the Battle of New York. Their target is the Tesseract, the Space Stone. Bruce heads toward the Ancient One to retrieve the Time Stone. Tony and Scott attempt to steal the Tesseract from the Avengers' past. But their plan goes wrong. The Tesseract ends up in Loki's hands. Loki disappears through a portal. Tony realizes they have lost the Space Stone. But Tony has another idea. They travel further back. To 1970. At a secret military facility, Tony and Steve search for the Tesseract. Tony also discovers something unexpected. His father, Howard Stark, is there. Tony watches him preparing to leave for work. For years, Tony struggled with his complicated relationship with his father. Now he gets a chance to speak with him. Howard talks about his wife, his unborn child, and how much he worries about being a good father. Tony realizes that his father loved him. The two men say goodbye. Tony takes the Tesseract. Steve also finds something he never expected. Peggy Carter, the woman he loved. He watches her through a window. For a moment, Steve considers approaching her. But he knows he cannot. His mission comes first. Meanwhile, Thor and Rocket travel back to Asgard during the events surrounding Thor, the Dark World. Their target is the Reality Stone. But Thor isn't focused on the mission. He sees his mother, Frigga. She is still alive. Thor has spent years blaming himself for failing his people. Now he gets one final opportunity to speak with his mother. Frigga realizes that something is different about him. Thor eventually admits that he feels like a failure. His mother tells him that being a hero isn't about being perfect. She reminds him that everyone fails at becoming who they are supposed to be. Thor leaves with renewed confidence. Rocket successfully retrieves the Reality Stone. But Thor also takes something else: Mjolnir. Meanwhile, Clint and Natasha travel to Vormir. They need the Soul Stone. But the Red Skull tells them the same truth Thanos once learned. The stone requires a sacrifice. One of them must die. Clint wants to sacrifice himself. Natasha refuses. The two friends fight over who will make the sacrifice. Clint runs toward the edge. Natasha stops him. They struggle. Then Natasha makes her choice. She falls. Clint desperately tries to save her. But Natasha sacrifices herself. The Soul Stone appears. Clint returns to the present with the stone. And the devastating knowledge that Natasha is gone. On another mission, Nebula and Rhodey travel to 2014. They plan to steal the Power Stone before Peter Quill ever finds it. But something goes wrong. Nebula's cybernetic systems connect with her past self. Thanos discovers what the future holds. He learns that his future self succeeds. He also learns that the Avengers will eventually undo his snap. Thanos realizes the Avengers have found a way to travel through time. And he decides to use their own plan against them. The Avengers return to the present. They have the stones. They build a new Infinity Gauntlet. But there is a problem. The energy from the stones is almost impossible for a human body to survive. Bruce volunteers. He believes the radiation is mostly gamma. He puts on the gauntlet. The energy tears through his body. But Bruce survives. He snaps his fingers. Nothing happens at first. Then, phones begin ringing. Lights turn on. People return. Birds appear in the sky. Families suddenly find their loved ones standing beside them. The snap has been reversed. The Avengers have won. Or so they think. Because somewhere in the past, Thanos has learned their plan. He has found a way to follow them into the future. And his entire army is coming. The Avengers compound suddenly explodes. The heroes are separated. The gauntlet is lost. And the greatest battle in the history of the universe is about to begin. The Avengers have brought everyone back. But before they can celebrate, Thanos arrives. The Avengers compound is destroyed. The Infinity Stones are scattered. And the heroes who survived the snap are suddenly facing the same enemy who defeated them 5 years earlier. But this time, they refuse to lose. Thanos sits among the ruins. He explains that he destroyed the Infinity Stones after using them because he knew someone might try to undo his work. The Avengers have already reversed the snap. But Thanos now has a new plan. He wants to use the stones to destroy the entire universe. And create a new one. A universe where nobody remembers what existed before. No resistance. No Avengers. No one capable of stopping him. He believes he is the only person who can create a perfect future. Thor attacks. Captain America joins him. Iron Man follows. The 3 original Avengers fight Thanos together. Thor uses Stormbreaker. Tony attacks with his armor. Steve fights with his shield. But Thanos is too powerful. He overpowers all 3. Thor is thrown aside. Tony is badly injured. Steve continues fighting even after his shield is damaged. Then Thanos' army arrives. Thousands of creatures flood the battlefield. Steve looks around. For a moment, he is alone. Then he hears something. A voice. On your left. Sam Wilson. Falcon. He has returned. Portals begin opening across the battlefield. Doctor Strange. Black Panther. Wanda. Spider-Man. Guardians of the Galaxy. The Wakandans. The surviving Avengers. Everyone who disappeared returns. The final battle begins. Steve looks across the battlefield. Every hero he has fought beside is there. He finally lifts his shield. The Avengers charge. The battle spreads across the ruined compound. Thor, Captain America, and Iron Man attack Thanos together. Wanda confronts him. She nearly destroys him single-handedly. Thanos realizes he cannot defeat her. He orders his army to fire on everyone. The battlefield becomes chaos. Meanwhile, the Infinity Gauntlet is being passed from hero to hero. Spider-Man gets it. He swings across the battlefield. Black Panther takes it. Captain Marvel arrives. She carries the gauntlet through the enemy forces. The heroes try to get it to the time machine. If they can send the stones back, they can prevent another catastrophe. But Thanos knows what they're doing. He sends his strongest forces after them. Peter Parker is surrounded. He struggles to escape. Then a massive portal opens. The women of the Avengers arrive. Captain Marvel. Wanda. Okoye. Shuri. Pepper Potts. Valkyrie. And many others. They form a line around Peter. They tell him they have the gauntlet. Peter smiles. For the first time. The battle feels possible to win. Captain Marvel takes the gauntlet. She flies toward the time machine. Thanos sees her. He throws his sword at her. It hits Captain Marvel. She barely moves. Thanos realizes he cannot defeat her physically. So he uses the Power Stone. He blasts her away. The gauntlet falls. Thanos reaches for it. Iron Man sees what is happening. He knows there is only one way to stop Thanos. He attacks. Thanos grabs Tony. The Infinity Stones are still on Thanos' gauntlet. Tony reaches for them. He secretly transfers the stones onto his own armor. Thanos raises his hand. He tries to snap his fingers. Nothing happens. He looks at the gauntlet. The stones are gone. Tony is holding them. Thanos realizes what Tony has done. Tony looks at him. Then says, "I am Iron Man." He snaps his fingers. The Infinity Stones release their full power. Thanos' army begins disappearing. His soldiers turn to dust. His generals vanish. His entire army is destroyed. Thanos sits quietly. For the first time, he accepts defeat. Then he disappears. Tony falls to the ground. Peter Parker reaches Tony. He is desperate. Tony can barely speak. Peter tells him that they won. Tony looks at him. He knows his job is finished. Pepper arrives. She kneels beside him. She tells him he can rest now. Tony Stark dies. The Avengers mourn. Tony's funeral takes place beside his home. A holographic recording plays. Tony speaks to his daughter, Morgan. He tells her that he loves her. The people he fought beside stand together one final time. Steve, Thor, Bruce, Clint, Peter, Sam, Bucky, Carol, Wanda, and everyone else who survived. The man who started the Avengers is gone. But his sacrifice saved the universe. Thor decides that he doesn't want to return to ruling Asgard. He believes Valkyrie is better suited to lead the people. Thor joins the Guardians of the Galaxy. Peter Quill prepares to search for Gamora. The Guardians leave Earth. Thor jokes with Quill about who is really in charge. Their new adventure begins. Bruce, meanwhile, has finally accepted both sides of himself. He is no longer afraid of the Hulk. He has found a balance between Bruce Banner and the Hulk. He continues helping people. Clint returns home. He finally sees his family again. The years of grief are over. But he will always remember Natasha. She gave her life so everyone else could come home. Wanda continues her journey. The events have changed her forever. But she is alive. And her powers are stronger than ever. Steve Rogers has one final mission. He must return the Infinity Stones to their original moments in time. He takes Mjolnir and the stones, then enters the quantum realm. But when Bruce tries to bring him back, Steve isn't there. Instead, an old man is sitting on a bench nearby. Bruce realizes who it is. Steve Rogers. Years have passed for him. Sam approaches Steve. Steve tells him that he lived the life he always wanted. He finally got his chance to be with Peggy. He experienced the ordinary life he sacrificed when he was frozen in the ice. Steve hands his shield to Sam. The shield no longer belongs to him. It belongs to the next generation. Sam becomes the new Captain America. Steve smiles. His journey is finally complete. The story ends where Steve's began. With a man who wanted nothing more than to serve his country, and ended up becoming a symbol for the entire world. Tony Stark sacrificed himself to save the universe. Natasha sacrificed herself to obtain the Soul Stone. Steve Rogers sacrificed decades of his life to protect others. The Avengers lost friends, lost family, and lost the people they once were. But they saved everyone. Avengers Endgame is more than the conclusion of the Infinity Saga. It's a story about consequences. Tony Stark begins as a selfish genius who believes he can solve every problem himself. He ends as a father willing to sacrifice everything for everyone else. Steve Rogers begins as a young man who wants to fight for his country. He ends by finally choosing a life for himself. Thor loses his kingdom and his confidence, but discovers that failure doesn't make him worthless. Natasha gives her life for the family she chose. And the Avengers learn that sometimes saving the world requires the ultimate sacrifice. The Infinity Saga ends. But the heroes' stories continue. Some will move forward. Some will leave. And some will become legends. The Avengers may never be the same again. But their legacy remains. Because when the universe needed heroes, they answered. And when everything seemed lost, they stood together one final time. If you enjoyed listening to this narration, please like, share, and subscribe for more movie stories. I'll see you in the next one.